maybe the tattoos don't make sense in broad daylight in the middle of your workday, but when I see this guy playing music at night and he's actually decent at it, then yeah, all of that makes sense.
Yep.
And he's not afraid to go and do whatever he feels like doing. And that, what better message to give to somebody who maybe is struggling, trying to find their identity, trying to, map out their life, or they feel like they weren't true to themselves and they followed a career path because it was safe and they're afraid to do something that quote unquote unsafe. And, so I feel that's happened a lot. I've had people tell me that just by the behavior I model and like who the persona I represent through social media or whatever, that it's inspired them to just, I'm going to be whoever I am unapologetically.
All right. How's it going, Carlos? How's everything going?
I'm doing well, man. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, for everyone that is welcoming back to the Sandbox, I want to introduce Carlos Escanilla. He is a bilingual licensed psychotherapist by day. He's a musician by night. He's also a fitness enthusiast involved in a lot of different groups like CrossFit Soul. Mm-hmm. And he just ran a marathon the other day. So he's definitely like really involved in the industry beyond his craft of his career. He's also the host of a podcast called Men of a Certain Age. So he definitely has a lot going on, but he's a very unique person that I thought would be an amazing person to have on the show. He tries a way to merge his creative side with his professional side, and I think it's an awesome thing to have someone that's so unique and brings a multifaceted kind of approach to your craft. So I'll let you introduce yourself to anyone that's never heard about you, or if there's anything that I didn't really like put in there.
That sounded phenomenal, man. I was just keep going on this game. No, I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate being here. It's always an honor to be asked to be on on a podcast, but I'm especially one you're a fan of. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy this podcast, so I'm really excited to be a part of it. Yeah, pretty much you nailed everything. I'm a psychotherapist here in Miami, and it's been awesome. It's been great. I'm in private practice. I'm part of a group over at Coral Gables Counseling Center, and it's a really awesome group of people, and we're doing our best. We're doing our best to serve the the demand that has been that's grown through the pandemic. Right. And everyone's working really hard, and so I'm part of that, and just stuff that I never let go of. I mean, the story with music is that's when you do your last year of your master's degree, you do this unpaid clinical internship. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old boy, and I had to make money somehow. So I used, my talent of singing and playing guitar, formed a band, and started making money playing music locally. And that stuck. And I graduated and pursued my career, but the gigs kept on getting booked, and we just never stopped. And Here we are, about 12 years later, still playing. I mean, I play different formats. I'll do solo gigs. I'll get my guitar player out there. We'll do duo gigs, and then I have the full band experience, which the main place where we play at is Lincoln's Beard Brewery, which we've been the second Friday of the month since the place opened. Yeah. And so we're always there. The name of that band is Sunset Dreams. And yeah, I mean, I keep busy doing that. Yes, love fitness. Fell in love with CrossFit about 5 or 6 years ago now. And my kids do it. My kids started CrossFit 5 years ago. Matthew, who's now 13, and Michael, who is now 15. Michael is an Olympic weightlifter, and he learned that through CrossFit. And now he coaches the kids. And yeah, so all that is a big part of my life. Married, I've been married. Recently hit the anniversary, the 8-year mark married, 12 years together.
Congratulations.
Yes. And if the numbers don't add up, yes, it is my second marriage. Because they're like, he has a 15-year-old. How's that add up, right? So yeah, that's me, man. Just doing the best I can.
Cool. And to kind of take it a little bit further back, maybe we can talk about your background, your parents, where they came from, your upbringing here. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. My so basically my mom brought me here when I was 1. Basically never met no, not basically. I never met my biological father, and she, fell in love with the man that I call my dad, and he was living in Miami. So my mom brought me from Chile. My dad is also from Chile, but he was already living here. Got here when I was about 1.5, and just grew up here, man. Just Miami through and through. There was an interruption there where we tried to live in Chile for a couple years. When I was 10, we went back with the hopes of going back to our culture and see how it goes, but business didn't really work out. So we came back 2.5 years later, something like that. So just came right back to Miami, blended right back in, same old friends, went to the same school that was, assigned for my area.
Nice.
And I basically been here ever since. Miami is just my favorite place, even though my body's not built for heat. But I love Miami so much that I stick with it. I stay here. Yeah. I love everything about Miami, perhaps except the heat temperature, not the basketball team, because I love the Miami.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of what drove you towards pursuing this craft of psychotherapy, was there any inspiration from your parents or from other family members or close ones that kind of inspired that direction for you?
There was one particular person that inspired, but growing up, it was always, oh, you're so easy to talk to, like I was very quick to fall into the friend zone with girls when I was in, high school and early in college, and, you're such a great listener, and, you help me process things, and you've helped me through so much, and you should be a therapist. And I was at FIU, and I wanted to major in business because everyone was like, that's the only way you're going to make money. Don't be a therapist because therapists don't make any money. Mm-hmm. And that was the, that was the thing back then. And so I did. I majored in business and tried to pursue that for a couple of years, and I was absolutely miserable. And I was still in my first marriage, and we were trying to work things out. And we really tried everything. And one of the things we tried was couples therapy. And the therapist that worked with us, he was just an inspiration to me. I was like, I learned so much about myself. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out, but we each learned a lot about ourselves and that process. And really, he did a great job just putting up a mirror and just helping us see our flaws and our character defects and how it affects others and how we project our shit to other people and make other people feel bad based on our own insecurities and issues that we have, and just he did such a great job that even though the marriage didn't work out, I continued to see him for career counseling. And he wasn't trying to point me in that direction, but one day I was just like, I just want to do what you do. Mm-hmm. I want to give someone the experience that you gave me, and that's what I want to do. And he said, okay. And he helped guide me, and he pretty much told me all the difficulties, because it is an imperfect program, but everything I was going to go through, what the struggles were going to be. But eventually, if you get to a point where you can have your own practice and you can diagnose and treat people, that if I really love the work, that I'll be happy. Got it. And it's turned out to be pretty true up to this point. So.
Yeah. Specific to your space, I know that there's sometimes confusion when it comes to psychotherapists versus just psychology or mental health coach. There's a lot of different, phrases getting thrown out, and for people who aren't familiar with the space, they might confuse them together. So I don't know if you can kind of clarify some of those different areas, and so people know what it means to be specifically your role of a licensed psychotherapist.
So, okay, I've gotten into a little bit of trouble answering this question in the past, especially people who have more advanced degrees, who have doctorates in clinical psychology and things like that. So, what I'll say to that is it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for somebody who, if you're experiencing from an extreme mental illness or a mood disorder, anxiety, depression, you want to look for somebody who has the training to diagnose and to treat. Okay, now who has that? Basically, you have obviously clinical psychologists, people who have doctorates and PhDs, and those are obviously there. Of course, not everybody can afford a $300,000 program and do research for a university for 5 years of their lives, especially since a lot of people who are therapists are career changers. So a lot of people go into this field a little later on. So what I imagine happened, I don't know the history very well, but what I imagine is what happened is, let's develop a program where people can still learn the diagnostic, the manual DSM-5 to be able to diagnose, and then of course the treatment and all the training that's involved with treating that. So you can have a master's degree in social work, you can have a master's degree in mental health counseling, you can have a master's degree in marriage family therapy, and at the end of the day, after 2 years of seeing people under supervision, so somebody with a license supervises your work, your cases, you discuss it with them for 2 years, and then you can sit for the exam. And that exam is a very tedious exam, all about, like, it takes you down this rabbit hole, like, here's a case, this is what's happening, what would you do, what's your initial diagnosis, what's the process, what's the modality. And once you pass that exam, you become licensed and you can diagnose and treat. Now, I know the things I cannot do, and the things I cannot do is, for example, do or conduct extensive research and publish research results and, write books based on research and stuff like that. But if you're looking for somebody to help you through a hard time, or if you're experiencing depression, anxiety, adjustment, anything like this, or more advanced stuff, if you feel that you have borderline personality disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, anybody who's licensed can properly help you. So if you read licensed clinical social worker, they can help you. Licensed mental health counselor, which is what I am, they can help you. Clinical psychologist, they can help you. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but that's kind of where we're at.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important to do that, because now in this day and age, there's also self-prescribed, mental health coaches that, they might have not even studied it as in depth as what you did, and are now actually advising and treating other people. So I think it's important to kind of like put, some boundaries, or at least so people understand what they're getting into when they're, approaching the subject and trying to work with someone that could help them out.
Yeah.
In terms of what you do, which I think for those that aren't watching the podcast, they don't really see you, and I think that a lot of people have different ideas of what a psychotherapist or a therapist looks like. Sometimes
Yes.
we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
They're not used to. They usually think it's someone that's very like academic and kind of like reserved and you wears a tie or or has glasses or it's very female dominated actually.
Mm-hmm.
But when they see you and they see someone that works out, that has tattoos, that looks very different from the prototypical, stereotypical kind of psychologist that they would approach. I think that it's interesting how you've positioned yourself in the space and how you've kind of opened up the opportunity for people to approach you as someone that they could talk to in these matters. So what's been your experience with individuals in this space? Like, are there certain kind of demographics that you've been able to cater to, or is there anything that you've realized being different from the masses of the space that you've kind of like experienced over your career?
It's a great question. It's actually it's funny you ask, because it's been a very relevant subject in the last 2 weeks of my life, because I took the leap and got my hand tattooed.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's the question is, the first question out of everybody's mouth is, how does that affect your career? Like how do people look at you? And it's been funny, because my answer has been, wow, like it's almost disappointing how little of a shit people have given about this tattoo. Sorry, can I curse on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, it just dropped. Like my patients walk in, they're like, oh, cool. All right, anyway, let's talk about me, because that's what they're there for. They're not there to talk about my tattoos, right?
Yeah.
If I've had one person that openly said, and not that age is that big of a thing, but 22-year-old that actually looked at me and said, because before the hand tattoo, I would always wear long sleeves and you couldn't see my full tattoo sleeves. And he said, before we started, if I would have noticed the tattoos, I probably wouldn't have come back to you. One person. Now, I don't know. There's probably been others.
That didn't say something. They just kept it to themselves.
Yeah. But I'm happy to report that my retention rate is pretty high.
Yeah.
So people know that I have it, that I have the tattoos, that I'm heavily tattooed, and they don't care. Because at the end of the day, if I'm helping them, I mean, we're egocentric creatures. Like, I don't care what you look like. If you're helping me, then I'm going to keep coming back. Correct. And I think that I'm confident enough in my abilities to where I can pull that off as kind of, not to sound arrogant or whatever, but I do feel confident. I do have a lot of experience. I worked in the public sector. I've worked in the private sector. I've worked with families. I've worked with all demographics. I mean, I do feel very confident in my abilities. And I think people sense that. And at that point, they don't care. But what's really happening, though, in reality is that people appreciate it because people are intimidated by going to the person you described. Yeah. Where I'm just sitting there, with like my suit and, like, hey, like, let's talk about this and that. And, it's like, and sometimes it can come off as a little condescending. People feel intimidated. People leave a therapy room feeling stupid, feeling like silly, feeling ridiculous. The person didn't make them feel comfortable. They made them feel, uncomfortable about their decision or whatever issue they had during that session. So it's really interesting because when they see me, it's almost like an immediate comfort. It's almost like, this guy's just like me. This guy's just like one of the guys that, this guy could be, he's just a regular guy. Mm-hmm. And it's actually helped me more than ever. It's like hurt me or anything like that, So I'm grateful for that because I'm not going to stop getting tattooed.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Which is interesting. It's good because it shows that it's less of a narrow path or like a narrow structure of this is what you study and this is how you look and this is how you compose yourself. And so that's why I think it's unique to showcase how you've been able to develop your career because it shows that people don't have to follow these, socially constructed ideas of what it is to be a certain professional, a certain path.
Yeah, I mean, it models a really healthy behavior. It models a healthy behavior. This guy did not limit himself. This guy, maybe the tattoos don't make sense in broad daylight in the middle of your workday, but when I see this guy playing music at night and he's actually decent at it, then yeah, all of that makes sense. Yep. And he's not afraid to go and do whatever he feels like doing. And that, what better message to give to somebody who maybe is struggling, trying to find their identity, trying to, map out their life, or they feel like they weren't true to themselves and they followed a career path because it was safe and they're afraid to do something that quote unquote unsafe. And, so I feel that's happened a lot. I've had people tell me that just by the behavior I model and like who the persona I represent through social media or whatever, that it's inspired them to just, I'm going to be whoever I am unapologetically.
Yeah. Getting into the concept of your process when let's say you have a new client and you are going to approach them for the first time, are there any rituals or any kind of preparations that you set for yourself entering into that new experience with the person so that, for not just for yourself, but for them?
I enter every initial session with zero preconceived notions. I don't, unless they're in crisis. Okay, so if this person has expressed that they want to kill themselves, or they, witnessed something traumatic or experienced something traumatic, yes, I want to know about it, obviously. Yeah. But for the most part, I like to go in with no preconceived notions, and I just like for them to tell me what we call the presenting issue is, and go from there. And if they're stuck, because sometimes they have to wait like 3 or 4 weeks before they get into the office. And sometimes they get stuck, and I'll just say, okay, what was going on the day you made the appointment? Because something happened that made you want to actually dial the number and say, I'm ready to do this. What was so intense about that? What was going on that was intense enough for you to make that move? And boom, they just open up right away. They're like, oh, I remember. And then we go from there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
In terms of the way that you keep yourself prepared for whatever's going to come your way, because I'm sure that there's obviously different reasons that people approach you, but I'm sure there's always like a different angle or some sort of different approach. How do you stay educated in the space to knowing, how to approach some of these new variations of these issues that you've dealt with? Is there certain subject matter that you study? Is it are you reading certain books, or are you watching certain videos that kind of keep you up to date or in tune with what's going on, so that you could kind of like connect the dots and be able to approach them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's, I think that with all the changes that we've seen in technology in the last 20 years, let's say, you know, there's always that question, like, what are therapists doing to stay up to date? Well, it's interesting because the processing doesn't change. The triggers don't change. You know, how we react to things doesn't change. It's just the stimulus that's changing. It's just we now have social media. It triggers certain emotions, but those emotions always existed. What are those emotions? Insecurity, right? The comparison factor, all those, stress, anxiety, all those things have always existed. So it doesn't really, it's more important to stay up to date with what's triggering people, because the modalities really don't change. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are hooked on self-help books or self-development books. And if you pay really, really close attention, if you were to read, you were to read 100 self-development books, 98 of them come from the same umbrella of information. It's just all they did was package it differently.
Correct.
They used wording that maybe was tailored for you. So I always use the example of The Miracle Morning, right? I reference it because I like that book and it worked for me. But there's other people it doesn't work for. But what this gentleman did is he told his story because he went through something traumatic, and you guys can read the book on your own if you're interested. But he tells his story and how The Miracle Morning and what he designed helped him. But then there's like 20 books that are just like that, like the 5 a.m. Club, right? It's like same thing. It's like this ritual in the morning, and it's all behavior based. So one could say that if you read a self-development book, it's more important to read it, let it resonate with you, and go and do and apply what you learned instead of jumping to the next book, which is what most people do, right? So what do I stay up to date? What I'm trying to stay up to date with professionally currently right now is the effect of social media and how it has affected. We've regressed our ability to communicate verbally. I mean, we laugh because there is humor to it, but like, oh, wait, you can text me, but don't call me. Dude, this person's calling me. Like, who calls people? Like, who calls? No, no, just decline. This person called me. It's a phone. Like, it's the phone's doing its job, but so things like that, like we have regressed, in my opinion. We have regressed in our ability to communicate and confront. I was laughing the other day. We're talking about the whole thing with ghosting, mm-hmm. and how people can ghost each other, and like, you cease to exist in my universe, like just like that. Like, you said one wrong thing, or you sent one text that bothered me, or you acted weird, not because maybe you were acting weird because you like me and you didn't know what to do, but I just interpreted you're just strange and now I'm ghosting you. All these things that are not being communicated. And so that's what I'm getting into right now, where my biggest demographic is the ages of 24 to 35. And out of those, probably 80% of them are dating, currently in the dating realm, dating pool, dating experience, and just helping them kind of maneuver this experience dating, but with regressed communication. Yeah. It's fascinating, and trying to help people maintain, like, there are some things that don't go out of style. Like telling somebody how you feel doesn't go out of style. Telling somebody that they're making you feel uncomfortable doesn't go out of style. Giving a person a fair chance, that doesn't go out of style. And so that's like I'm not reading anything specific currently. I keep following my modalities that I believe in. I used to teach the happiness course at one of the local universities here. And I follow a lot of that. What I taught there, and I bring that into the therapy room, and of course just all the the traditional books that a lot of Eckhart Tolle or Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. These are books that teach like the fundamentals, deflating the ego, staying present, internal focus of control, like things like that apply and trickle down to everything. So I stay up to date But what I am trying to do is I'm trying to understand how this technology has really affected people negatively, emotionally, with all the benefits it has.
Yep.
But emotionally, it's really, really messing with people. So that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. I think that there's just, I think that's like the underlying factor of a lot of these things. And then there's the amplification of other global events that have happened too that have probably added to that and now experienced. So obviously the pandemic was its own thing, and it's affected people mentally, especially if they've been directly affected health-wise. But I think the fact that we have internet and we have social media and we have this fast kind of like instant gratification of seeing news or seeing stats and seeing people have commentary, it's kind of changed the landscape, and people are being flooded with information and have options to kind of like digest all of it. I don't think that most people have been accustomed to that. I don't think that most people have been able to come to grips with the fact that we have all this information. And then now you turn around and the war that's been going on, it's like we've never experienced a war where the people on the ground have phones and the people on the ground can actually showcase what's going on in real time, almost before you would have to turn on the 5 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news and see like what happened in the past week, maybe not even the past day. And things are just happening so fast that there's just a lot more information coming in, and I think that that's definitely all feeding into it. So it's really interesting to always see how the fact that we've gotten from technology, and then how events kind of transpire, and then now you digest it differently. It's not like we didn't go through wars or we didn't go through pandemics. It's a matter that now people are digesting it completely differently, and I think that we haven't really fully seen how it's set into the average individual. But
yeah, I mean, it keeps this engine, I'm pointing to the brain, it keeps it just running. Like, we don't shut it off. I mean, this accessibility opens up our appetite for more, for the world. I get to experience the world more, so, I mean, yes, obviously the most serious thing that's happening today as we're recording this is the war that's going on, but even trickling down, going back to, the dating example, like, yeah, I like this person, but there's so many other people. Like, I go on Instagram and look at all these other people, and I want to experience all of that. So all of a sudden, this person that I'm talking to is not that interesting anymore. It's incredible because it opens up our appetite for more. Yep. We want more. We want more. We want to know more. We want to be in the loop. We want to. I mean, it's really, really fascinating. But then, of course, escalating it to where you're going. I mean, the pandemic. What have I experienced? And of course, I'm just one therapist out of many. What have I seen most come out of the pandemic is people learn things about themselves, but being uncomfortable with it. Like, people who thought they enjoyed going out and being in big groups of people.
Yep.
And then the pandemic hits, the shutdown hits, quarantine hits, all these things. And then they go to a place for the first time, surrounded by a lot of people, and they're like, oh shit, I think I have social anxiety. But how did I not have that before? Why do I have that now?
Yeah.
Right? Or people who have made career changes, people who've resigned from their jobs. Like, I didn't realize how nonstop I was and how stressed I was in my life. And then we were forced to slow down to a speed that one could argue is the speed that life is supposed to go at. And then all of a sudden we have to pick it back up, and we're all like, no. I liked this speed. Yeah. Well, you have to go at this speed. Okay, well then I quit. I'm going to go do something else for my own peace. The stress hormone is highly involved in most physical illnesses. I'm going to take care of my peace. I'm going to take care of myself. Yeah. And so people coming in to my office processing that, like, I wasn't always like this, but I'm like this now. Is something wrong with me? Well, we want to stay away from, is there something wrong with you? But it'd be interesting to explore what happened and what you discovered about yourself, that maybe this is how you were meant to be, and this is how you're enjoying life more.
Yep. And
how I can help you continue still being successful, still making a living, still, living your life, but in a way where you are more at peace, because nothing's more important than your peace. Mm-hmm. That part's been fascinating too, as far as the pandemic is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also it shook a lot of people's foundations in the sense of it brought a lot of uncertainty to what in their lives they thought was certain. Well, but for me, I guess being a freelancer and being in entrepreneurship has taught me over time is like kind of certainty is almost like a socially constructed thing, because it's you could have a client or you could have a certain amount of income or business happening, and on the flip of a switch it's no longer there, and you just thought you expected that things are going to operate in the status quo. They're going to keep going the way that they were going, and when a shakeup like this happens, it brings in the element of uncertainty, which clearly a lot of people don't know how to really manage it. So that to me has been like one of the bigger pieces that's kind of gotten people to start turning their gears. And I read that in January alone there was 4.3 million people that resigned from their jobs.
Really?
So that tells me, and that's only in 1 month. So I can imagine over the course of the pandemic, over the maybe last month too, like a lot of these things are setting in, and people are starting to look different ways. So I think it's always very important to refocus and reframe what's going on, because what we think is the way things are and they're going to continue to be can easily be changed by anything really at this point. But it's an interesting kind of
and the generation clash that occurs with that, right?
Correct.
Because now the parents of these people they come from a scarcity mindset, and that's a big thing in cities where we have a lot of people from other countries and other cultures that we do have that scarcity mindset that we were brought up in. I know my parents were like, the day you don't work is the day you lose everything. Like that was like you're only as good as your last day. Like things like this. Like I could trabajar. You have to, no. Like no, there's no breaks. Like what do you mean? Like you take 1 week vacation? That's too long. Like they're gonna fire you, and then you're never gonna find a job again, and you're gonna end up living under a bridge, right? So like this scarcity mindset, all of a sudden clashing with this. Hey, my peace comes first, and I'm gonna find a work that feeds into that. And you have these people's family members and parents like no, like, but you can't stop. Like you're only 30 years old. You need to be like hustling. You need to be working 12 hours a day. You need to be burning yourself out. You need to be killing yourself, essentially. Yeah. This is what we encourage. This is what I did. And, this, and you need to, work your ass off. And that's fine. We want people to work hard and develop and succeed. But to the point of like being, working 14 hours a day, 5 days a week is unnecessary. Yeah. So that generation clash is also very interesting when you have to tell people, no, like you did great and you made a life for yourself and you had kids and you provided for them and you did wonderful and you succeeded, but you did kind of go about it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And for someone to hear that is, somebody who's maybe in their 50s now or late 40s and on, it's a punch, it's kind of a punch in the face. Yeah. It's like, are you downplaying my hard work? No, not downplaying your hard work, but you didn't have to go through all the stresses that you went through. Yeah. Because you fell into that system that now we're choosing to not fall into that system. Mm-hmm. So having the younger generation have the older generation just respect that decision is a fascinating component to all this. Yeah, I think.
And I think this also leans into the next part that I want to talk about, which is how you find a way to balance yourself out, whether it's through hobbies or escapism and other formats. For you, it's been music. How long ago did you start? Like, when did you find music as something that you loved?
Well, my parents, and my dad was he was really into disco, actually. So and then he was a huge Bee Gees fan. Nice. And I'll play a Bee Gees song at every show, just in honor of him, because that was the first time that I was singing along in the car. And then, that led into like Motown. He introduced me to Motown. And then Michael Jackson was really big at the time. We're talking about like the mid 80s, late 80s, and a lot of soul and me trying to sing along, trying to hit those notes. And I fell in love with it, man. That was great. Like that combination musicianship, it was great. And then at 12 years old, the grunge era, and so you guys can place me where I kind of dated myself there, but is where I just picked up the guitar, learned by ear, and never had a lesson. Wow. And then when I learned that, I was at it for 2 years, around 14, once my voice was a little bit more developed, I started singing, playing guitar and singing. That combination occurred around 15, 16, and then just never stopped. And then I was always, the guy at the party with the guitar, like, hey, bring out the guitar. Let's, when we just like sing like these crazy songs, and like, you know, that stuff would happen. And then I didn't start actually playing out in the scene till I was like 27. Yeah. So, but it's been, that's everything. I mean, and it played out exactly the way I wanted to play out, because I went through a phase of like, man, I wonder what would have happened if I would have pursued this, you know, like making it big, quote unquote, you know, playing sold out arenas and stuff like that. And then you get older and you start learning what the music business is like. You start learning what life is like as a famous person. Mm-hmm. You start learning like really the dark side of, you know, touring, you know, being away from your family for 6-7 months out of the year, that you have to go to. It's no longer fun. You're not like, hey, let's go on a tour. No, it's like the label saying you have to. Here's the contract. We own you. We need you to be in Dallas tomorrow. Like, it doesn't matter if your kid's birthday party. You know, like, and you start learning the music business, and you're like, wow, like that's a moment I had probably about 10 years ago. I had a moment where I was like, I'm playing music in the exact way I want to be playing music. Yeah. And I'm living, you know, I've always envisioned being a family man. I get to be a family man. I get to be there for my kids. I get to play music. I get to have a career. I get to enjoy my life. And it was like one of those moments where everything just came together. And I was like, yes, this is good. This is good. Let's just keep doing this. You know, when they stop booking me, then I'll just play music alone in my room. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think for me, it was always been sports or physical activity, specifically basketball. I mean, I started off in Little League baseball, but then it was too slow for me, and then I jumped into basketball, and I love like the fast-paced nature of it. You have to make decisions on the fly. 1 second you're playing offense, next second you're playing defense, and that kind of like energy was what I loved about it. Obviously, I knew because of my physical stature that it wasn't something that I could pursue even collegiately or professionally, but it was something that I knew I loved. And I've personally, just playing recreationally, torn both my ACLs playing basketball, and I've come back and still wanted to play it because of how much I love it.
Yes.
Because there's zero gain there financially, and obviously there's the risk of, you know, being out and you have to mend yourself. But the feeling that when I'm on the court, and for you, the feeling when you're playing an instrument, I think that those are things that are irreplaceable, or that, you know, bring that comfort of like you realize that this is something that you truly love. And I think the interesting part is being able to decipher whether it's a hobby or you can take it to a certain extent, or a career path that is, you know, now something you move on. Specifically for me, regardless of playing basketball, I always thought, oh, maybe I'll do advertising or marketing in sports. And the more I looked into it, I realized like a lot of times, let's say I end up working for the Heat or the Dolphins or the Marlins, you end up working the games, you end up being there and having to like not even be able to enjoy the game anymore.
Right.
So then it becomes less of a hobby and it's all work, and then the association starts blurring, and you don't have the same kind of elation when you're watching or experiencing the game. So I kind of realized early on that I said, I know I'm not going to play sports professionally, and I know now I'm not going to pursue it as a career path. I'm going to keep it as what I love watching and what I love, you know, experiencing.
Absolutely.
So I think it's always interesting to be able to have those boundaries of saying when you can choose this as a career path, or when am I just going to leave this as a hobby that I enjoy. I know for you also that's fitness, and you've been a part of a gym for a while. How long have you been part of CrossFit Soul?
About 6 years now. Cool. So I was about, I keep saying 100, but I think things have changed. So let's just say that I was about 80 pounds heavier.
Okay.
Around 2009, somewhere around there. 2008, 2009. And I started losing weight through these DVD programs called like P90X. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Definitely. I did some of that too.
Yeah. So I definitely did those at-home kind of workouts, and I lost like a good amount of weight, and then, you know, life changed. You know, divorce happens, and I kind of maintained that. But what was happening is, one thing, if you know someone's listening and they're interested in getting into the therapy world, it is a lonely road. You know, it's a lot of time by yourself. Yes, you are technically talking to people all day long, but they're not listening to you. You're listening to them. Like, there's no, you know, and it's very rare that you disclose things about yourself. Like, I do it when it's pertinent to the session, not like, oh, let's talk about me too. Like, obviously that's not part of the business.
Yeah.
So it is a lonely road. So there was a moment where I didn't want to do fitness because I was tired of going at it by myself, right? And then, you know, a lot of things like I do by myself. Even when I play music, sometimes like without the band, it's on me. It's just me and the guitar. You know, again, alone. Like, and so I worked when I was getting my master's degree. I worked at this organization called Drug Free Youth in Town, Defy It, and it was great. It was a great program, drug prevention program all across like Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And my office mate was Danny Lopez Calleja. And Danny Lopez Calleja moved on from there. I moved on and pursued my therapy career, and he moved on and opened up CrossFit Soul.
Got it.
So I called him one day, and it was like early 2015. So I said, hey man, like I love fitness. I want to continue losing weight. And I need a community because I'm spending a lot of time by myself. And he invited me, obviously. He's like, of course. And I've been part of that family since then, since 2015. And lost another like 40 pounds and maintained since, and have done different things and competitions and, you know, marathons and other things, and just always trying to stay active. And but that community has really, really changed my life. It's really presented me with new friendships. You know, people reach a certain age and they're like, oh, I'm too old to make friends. Well, that proved to be wrong, because some of my closest friends now I met there. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful community, and that keeps me plugged in. And, you know, so it's interesting because there's days I don't feel like working out, but I want to go see my people. So I end up at the gym, and you can't just be at the gym doing nothing. So you end up working out anyway, you know? Yeah. So that's what, you know, led to the appreciation of how your body can move and what your body's capable of. And then it opens up doors to other things like, hey, do you want to try running a half marathon? And in your mind, because of all the training you've done, you say, I think I could do that. Instead of saying, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, I don't run unless someone's chasing me, right? But, you know, when you are constantly doing fitness related activities, and all of a sudden somebody presents this, you're like, I can train for that. Yeah. So it's more of like this yes mentality. So, and again, my kids are involved too, you know, and it's really awesome to see them develop in that world as well.
Yep.
You know, so, yeah.
So how all these things kind of put together, we talk about your professional life, we talk about personal hobbies and things that you're involved with. It builds this whole concept of identity. And I feel like identity has shifted over the years in the sense that a lot of people used to believe that identity was very singular, or, you know, at least monolithic focus. Like, you are this person in your career and you're a father, or you're a single mom, or whatever the case might be. It was very like focused on that singular identity, as opposed to now there's these multifaceted angles that people layer into their identity. And I think that while that's kind of comforting in the sense that now people feel like they could do that, there's this kind of like open world of this gray area of how do I identify myself. And I wonder, has that represented itself in some of the kind of conversations you've had with clients, like identity crisis, identity, not knowing, are they more this or that, you know, this kind of, you know, conversation. Has that been something that has been brought up a lot, or has it been more subtle in your conversations?
It's a lot. It's brought up a lot, absolutely. And this, you know, this concept in my mind has kind of gone evolving through the years too, because it's really interesting when we are by nature egocentric creatures. And you know, there was a point where I looked at my life and I'm like, okay, I'm really happy with where I'm at. This is how people should live their life, and that's wrong, right? So there are people, and I've had to learn, because I've learned that I've made the decisions that I've made in my life it has a lot to do with my personality type. You know, I'm not, you know, I just, retirement is 65 years old traditionally, and I was 30 at the time, and I'm not going to do the same thing for 35 years. Mm-hmm. I am going to open up my experiences. I'm going to, if something presents itself, no is not going to be my default answer.
Yep. I'm
going to research it. I'm going to see if I like it, if I'm into it, and I'm going to try it. I'm just going to dive in, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going and try new things as I go along. And the things that I can get good at and be effective on and enjoy, I'm in. I'm down. But what I've learned throughout the years is that there are people who are very comfortable having just one identity, just one thing. And they are comfortable doing the same thing for 35 years.
Yep.
And they're not hiding behind anything. They're not just saying that. That's truly how they want to live their lives. And so that's interesting because we live in this world where we have access to so much, and we look at a person like that and say, well, why don't you try something new? And no, I don't want to. I don't feel that I need to. And it's like, wow, like it's amazing that there are people who feel that way.
Yeah.
But now, to answer your question, the people who don't feel comfortable, the people who are like, well, I can't imagine just, just studying, going to school, graduating, getting the job, getting the house, getting the family, and just like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, I get that a lot, where we have to get to the bottom as to the fear. Like, what's the fear of trying something new? What's the fear of, okay, you say you want to, I don't know, let's use the marathon example. You say you want to do a marathon, but you don't start running. Why? What is it? You say you want to start working out, but you don't. Why? What's going on? I would like to be more than, whatever your career is. I'd like to do something else. Okay, why don't you try it? And the fear of losing one identity, and it's that, like you said, singular. Like, well, if I go and play music, then I can't be a therapist. Says who? Yep. Right? Like, what do you mean? Who wrote that? Who said that? You're doing that to yourself. Oh, well, because, that's what you grew up. That's what you were taught growing up. You do one thing, but you don't have to. You can do multiple things, and just, you got to try it though. You have to. That's the biggest thing in therapy, right? Is you could bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Yeah. There's that session that, that we all have different names for it, but it's basically the summary session where, the person says, I don't think this therapy is working. And I'll just go, okay, well, let's review. And I'll just summarize the entire treatment. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, this is all the things we've been through. So where's the issue? I'm the issue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have everything you need. You're just not doing it. You're just not taking the leap. And that's the conversation that happens a lot in this realm. Like, I want to try this, or I want to try that, or I want to start a business here while still working here, but I'm afraid. That fear, man. Fear is just the ultimate enemy when it comes to stress, anxiety, depression. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that my opinion is, when you put yourself in a position where you're open to trying out different roles, whether it could be playing a video game and you role play as a character, or you could Correct. Be in a job, you take on a role that you're not comfortable with, but now you're learning about something that you didn't. If your tolerance or your your openness to that is very limited, then yes, you kind of constrict yourself into, this is who I am. I can't stray away from my lane, and it could cause these other issues. I feel like we're evolutionary creatures, and if you don't adapt, you put yourself in a really tough situation. So I've always grown up with that, and I feel like, although it's never an easy kind of switch, you're more open to it if you have kind of put yourself in positions to try different roles and try different things. And I feel like you've put yourself in that situation as well, especially going through different moments in your life where you said, you know what, this is not the direction I want to go. Let me try something else. And I think that that's something that's very important for, especially people in the creative field. There is no prescribed way of being successful in a creative career. Like I've talked about in the past, being an artist. Being an artist, it used to be very singular, very limited in the way that you would actually make money, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. You could be happy as an artist and paint whatever you want, sculpt whatever you want, but in terms of it as a viable career path, quote unquote, it just was very limited. Now it's opened up different doors. I feel like being creative comes with the territory of having to adapt to different roles, and I think that you're a good example of that as well.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
To kind of like wrap this up or get closer to the end of it, I'd like to talk a little bit more about insights you've learned over the years. Is there any kind of advice that you would tell yourself 10 years ago, or maybe let's frame it this way: advice for yourself in your 20s and advice for yourself in your 30s.
Oof. Wow.
It's a lot, but I mean.
Ooh. How old am I now? advice that I would have given myself in my 20s, in my 30s. Okay. I would say the advice I would have given myself in my 20s would be, please, for the love of God, just run your own race. Stop looking around. Stop. Your friends did well. They did. Congratulations. Be happy for them. They have the white picket fence. They have the perfect marriage. Well, no marriage is perfect, but they have a good marriage. They have beautiful children. They go on vacations every year. They're getting promoted at work. They found their way. Be happy for them. But that doesn't mean you have to strive for the same thing. Your path is different, and accept that. Be proud of that. Don't be ashamed of it. Because I'm 42 years old. I come from a generation where we were taught to be ashamed of anything less.
Yep.
Right. In my 20s, marriage wasn't going good. I ended up divorced right at 30, and nothing went the way that I wanted it to go. But I wouldn't have it any other way. So that would have been the advice in my 20s. Like, just please, and just like that, for the love of God, just stop. Because I would look around a lot, and I don't have that, and I don't have this, and I don't have this, and I don't have the nice car, and I don't have that. As a matter of fact, not only do I not have these things, but my life is fucking falling apart. Well, everyone gets what they want, and it creates this like temper tantrum, resentful attitude toward life and people and all this stuff. So I would have, and then in my 30s, the advice I would have given myself in my 30s would have been, I would say, barring any illnesses or tragic accidents, the road is long. So just stay engaged. Just be engaged in what you're doing. Focus, because one of the main triggers to anxiety is the feeling that you're never where you are supposed to be. And what causes that? The lack of being present. So if I'm thinking about other things right now, when I get to those other things later, I'm going to punch myself for not being present here with you.
Yep.
Right? And it just goes on and on and on and on. If I'm watching my kid's soccer game and I'm thinking about work, but everything ends up being okay at work, I'm going to regret not being present at my kid's soccer game. And that causes so much anxiety, and you feel like it causes this feeling like you're not living your life. You're just chasing something that you don't know what you're chasing, but you're chasing, and you're wasting energy on it. Yep. So that would have been, if I can go in my 30s and just say, hey, just everything's in its right place. Just enjoy it instead of trying to chase something that you don't even know what you're chasing. So, and the advice I'd give myself right now in my 40s is keep doing what you're doing, because I'm really, really enjoying it.
Nice. Touching upon your point about, not being present, I think that especially growing up in America, we have this idea of like the pursuit of happiness as opposed to like the actual enjoyment of happiness in the presence, or enjoying whatever's happening currently.
It's an interesting point.
So I mean, yes, I think you always want to pursue happiness and more of it, but then also take a step back and be present and see what is already in front of you that you can be grateful for. And I think that we struggle with that a lot, I think, as a generation now. So I think that there's definitely like room for us to reframe that subject.
Absolutely, man. I mean, what is the metric of happiness? How do you know how happy you are? The metric for happiness is how quickly you can bounce back to a good place from a negative situation. The time it takes, because negative situations are going to happen. They're inevitable. You got to expect them. And the way, how proactive you are toward it and how quickly you can bounce back into feeling better, it will determine how happy you are. And that's like the definition, well, maybe not the definition, but one of the definitions of an optimist, where we don't pretend everything's okay. We embrace the negative situation. We tackle it. We're proactive about it. That creates a positive emotion, whether you get the outcome that you want or not. And just the fact that you were proactive creates that positive emotion. And if you can get to that place fast, that helps you determine how happy you are as a whole.
Yeah. I agree with that. In terms of anyone entering the space of mental health, pursuing it as a career, Do you have any advice for someone that would be entering it now?
It's just, it's crazy that I'm gonna say this, because I never thought I'd be saying this about the mental health field. Don't get into it just because it's trendy right now. You know, there's you cannot hide from the work in this field. You can't coast. You know, you get really good. Like, there's that meme that's floating around out there in social media that says, you know, you don't pay me for the hour, you pay me by the experience. You know, like, I can listen to somebody for 50 minutes, and in 5 minutes I give them exactly what they need and have a breakthrough, you know, but I'm fully engaged in those 50 minutes. There's no way that I cannot be engaged. I can't coast for 50 minutes and then give them some random advice unrelated to anything they spent 50 minutes talking about. Yeah. You can't hide from the work. What's happening is the mental health field is growing. It's going to get better. There's going to be more money. There's still not enough therapists to meet the demand, so you have guaranteed work. Mm-hmm. If you're a male, forget about it. I mean, I get pulled in so many different directions. Can you talk to my son? Can you talk to my husband? Can you? I have a cousin. I have this guy. You know, this guy doesn't want a female therapist. You know, if you're a guy, even more. But it's a lot of work. You don't make a decent living right off the bat. You have those 2 years that you are a registered intern, and you're functioning under somebody's supervision. You're getting paid the minimum amount, whatever that is, and you're hustling for 2 years. All right, so there is a sacrifice. As I talked about earlier, there's a 1 year unpaid internship that you need to do, probably working in a place that you're not going to be a fan of. You're going to be working for free. That's going to get to you. So you really have to love the work, because it's going to get to you after a while when you're being treated like you're a full-time employee, but you're not getting paid. And again, it's just trendy right now. Mental health is the stigma has almost been removed. It's hot right now. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants to help. Don't do it because it's cool or trendy. Do it because you're actually willing to do the work. And it's a lot. It's a lot, and you have to know your limits. You have to know when to say, I cannot see more than X amount of people per day, or I need a mental health day. Yes, I am a therapist, but I also need a mental health day. Yeah. And if you're going to go into this field, it is my personal and professional opinion that every great therapist has a therapist. Because if you're not processing stuff with somebody, you're internalizing it. And if you're internalizing it, you're going to project it onto your patients, and you're going to damage them. Yep. So that is my personal and professional opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But I go by that. Every great therapist has a great therapist.
That makes total sense. I mean, yeah. We're all human.
So absolutely.
It's not like you are.
We're not robots.
Yeah, exactly. You can't separate yourself from the reality. And then to kind of wrap it up, is there any, and it doesn't have to be related to mental health, but are there any books or films that you've recently watched that you would recommend or that really caught your attention recently?
So the series Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
Yeah, I've only watched season 1. I gotta watch season 2.
They did a great job grabbing everything. Yeah. I mean, they grabbed everything that is uncool and made it cool again. Mm-hmm. Just communicating stuff, talking about things, not just assuming people know, not like hiding from people, not hiding behind a screen. Like, actually an example of people actually communicating their grievances or their insecurities or, you know, things like that, and just the overall theme and vibe of the show. The books I stick to, if you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on self-development books and be reading one after the other, I always recommend A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and Flow. Flow is an amazing book. I don't remember the author's name because it's a very complicated last name, but maybe in the show notes, if there's any, maybe we can we can put it. Flow is the concept of the way I feel playing music, the way you feel playing basketball, the way you feel when you're in the zone, and that, I'm sure, give a shout out to Mike Beltran when, the flow that he feels or his staff feels when he's, when they're in the kitchen and they're cooking, and, that creates happiness, and it creates a feeling of effectiveness that really elevates our mood. And you can find a state of flow in almost anything that you do. And so show Ted Lasso, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and Flow, which the author I'll find out exactly who it is, because it's a very complicated last name.
I looked it up and I'm not going to try.
Okay, good. There you go. Yeah. So you understand what I mean. Yeah. But,
we can add it to the notes if anyone wants to watch it. For me, I'm late to the party, but I've been watching Billions. Okay. I don't know if you watched that show. Have not. It's pretty solid. I'm on season 3 right now. I think you would like it. There's actually like there's 2 main characters. One guy's an attorney who's trying to prosecute this guy who's the head of a hedge fund, Axe Capital. And at Axe Capital, they have an internal, what's it called, the psychologist that goes and speaks to all the different individuals, and that, I feel like that character is very intriguing to me, and the whole dynamics of it is really interesting. It's like private sector, public sector, but it's all corruption and things that are going on and egos. So it's an interesting kind of like show that blends a lot of different. It's a lot of juxtaposition. It's always like, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy here, and then all these other people kind of get intertwined into it. So that's just kind of been like the tip that I've been on recently.
Nice. I think I'm going to get into that. Yeah. I'll keep you posted on that. That sounds very interesting.
Sure. They have it on, I think you watch it on Prime, and they have it in a few other spots because it was a Showtime show. But Amazon Prime is where I've been watching it. And other than that, I think I haven't really been reading that many books. I've been picking up a lot of my old design books. There's one called Senses, or Design for the Senses, that I've been recently like diving into. It talks about like the non-visual side of things, which is something that, everything is so visual, and what we create is so visual, but we can't deny the other aspects of the smell, the touch, the sound, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of been me trying to find a different angle to a lot of this stuff. That's awesome, man.
That's very cool. Yeah. Wow. I like that.
But where can anyone follow you or find you online?
Yeah, I mean, my website is carlosescanilla.com, and as I was talking to you before we started, our mutual website designer, he's gonna implement the music stuff there. So hopefully sometime soon the music stuff will be there. But as far as social media is concerned, what I call the personal page is carlos.escanilla, and my music page is Carlos305 Music. And that's pretty much the best ways to find me. And also, of course, Coral Gables Counseling Center. You can always go that route if you want to find me, for any therapy work, as well as my primary website.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for your time, Carlos.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.